Hello everyone and welcome to the Kiki London YouTube channel. My name's Amanda and in today's video we are going to be doing a start to finish gel polish application including prep. So I thought it was a good time to do an updated version of this kind of video because we have the launch of the new K&S professional nail tools. So I am going to be using 4 of the 7 new tools. So we have the Berlin nail cutters, the Milan cuticle nippers. I'm also going to be using the Helsinki cuticle tool as well as the Sofia cuticle tool. So this is only 4 of the 7 new tools, but I thought it would be a great chance to demo them in action and how I would use them to do prep before doing my gel polish application. Now, before starting anything, I did sanitize my nail with some alcohol, and I'm starting off with those Berlin cuticle nippers and just trimming down the length of my natural nail. It was a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, so I'm just taking off some of that excess. Now, I just went straight across because the edges of my sidewall edges of the free edge were already on the more shorter side where I'd been wearing round nails for a long time, and that's kind of the shape that I usually keep with my nails. So I'm going to take the 180 grit side of my file, going in one direction only, so avoid doing a zigzagging or seesawing with your file. We're just keeping it in one direction. I'm just creating that round shape. So I started off going for a bit more of a squoval shape, then I did make it a little bit more rounded. It's just kind of like personal preference or what shape your client wants, but because my nails were quite short, I was keeping it quite simple. Then we're going to take the Kiki London dust brush and dust away any of the dust that's been created from filing, and then I'm going to close up those those nail trimmers and pop them aside. And then we're going to start off with the Sofia cuticle tool. So this is a double-ended tool. We've got a wide end, which is exactly what I'm going to be using here, and then there is a more narrow end. So you've basically got an end that's going to suit most nail sizes. I find the wide end perfect for my thumbs because you're able to really push back that cuticle. So here we're just doing a basic cuticle pushback. You can see that there is some cuticle lifting up, which isn't necessarily visible at first when you start doing your prep, because sometimes that cuticle can be quite translucent, that's growing up the skin. The drier it gets, the more whiter it appears. So I start by pushing back with that rounded end of the Sofia tool, but then I'm going to swap to the Helsinki tool because I really love a rectangular straight edge kind of cuticle pusher. So that's exactly what this one is here, and I'm just showing you guys here that I keep this nice and flat to my natural nail. You don't want to be angling it up so it's digging down or scraping the nail, because then you're actually going to start scraping off layers of your natural nail because these are super sharp. So I'm keeping this nice and flat to my natural nail, and this is where you can see that it starts lifting off the cuticle that wasn't necessarily visible, especially in the video. You could see it there, but it's a little hard to pick up in the video, but as it's scraping it off, you can then start seeing it. So as you can see, I'm just very, very gently doing this. Like I mentioned, these tools are super sharp, so you don't want to be applying too much pressure. This is all in real time. I haven't sped this part of the video up, so you can see that I'm going nice and slowly, nice and carefully. If I feel as though I can't get a good look at the nail, I'll dust away any of that excess cuticle that we've scraped off. And then that's where you can see that there's parts of the cuticle where it's been pushed up and all that dry, dead, crusty stuff has been pushed up, but it's still connected to that cuticle. So that's why I swap round and use the slanted end of this particular tool, because I love how this cuts it all away. Where it's super sharp, it does this effortlessly. You don't need to be applying a lot of pressure. You can simply scrape around, and I find that this does a super thorough cuticle cleanup without having to use an e-file. I kind of used to swap between using cuticle tools and my e-file depending on my preference, or when I worked on clients, what kind of clients I was working on. But these tools are so sharp that if you're not e-file trained, they're a great alternative. Now I'm going to come in with the Milan cuticle nippers, and I'm going to nip off that really dry, horrible crusty layer that we originally pushed right back, and you can see it's dead skin. So I'm very, very carefully nipping this off, and I do this by pushing one side of the blade up against the skin because we don't want to trim off any living tissue, and then I'm able to get that dry layer in between the two blades of the nippers, squeeze them together, and again, because they're super sharp, it trims and removes this excess tissue, excess cuticle, nice and easily. Then you might sometimes have a few little hangnail parts of the skin around the edges, so you can come in and nip those off too as well if you want to. Here I'm just getting off a few little stubborn bits that the cuticle tool had missed, and then again we're going to dust away all of that dried cuticle that we've removed, and you can see now there's a lot more visible of the nail plate visible down at that cuticle area. So what's going to happen is when you come in and apply your base coat and your gel polish application, you're going to be able to get a nice neat cuticle line, because you're not going to have this jagged edge where you had all of that dry crusty cuticle sitting there. And then we're going to wipe over the nail again with that alcohol, just to make sure we can really get a good close look at the nail and make sure that we're removing any of that cuticle that we have lifted away. Then I come back in with the Sofia tool because I love the rounded end on this. So I'm just making sure at this point everything has been fully removed. You don't want to leave any cuticle that's growing up the nail plate on the nail plate, because when you come in and apply your gel polish over the top, that cuticle is going to continue growing, and then that's what's going to cause your gel polish to lift. So if you struggle with lifting around that cuticle area, go back to basics with your prep and make sure that your prep is 100% on point, because a lot of the time when you are getting lifting right at that cuticle line, it's because you're not removing all of that cuticle. So then as you're wearing your gel polish, that cuticle is continuing to grow up the nail and then causing the gel polish to lift. Now I do always like to come in and gently buff or etch the nail plate before applying my primer and base coat. Some people don't do this. It can be quite a debate in the nail industry. Personally, I like to do it quite gently, either with my file or the Kiki London buffer. If I've been doing quite regular nails, or again, if you're working on a client who comes quite regular for manicures, you might find that you don't need to etch with a file, so you can just do it with a buffer. So I'm using the 180 grit side and just going in circular motions. And basically with etching, you don't want to be doing it for too long. You don't want to be going backwards and forwards over that nail. You just want to use nice, gentle circular motions simply to remove the shine from the nail. And if you're like myself, where I've got ridges in my nails at the moment as well, I've not got the best conditioned nails, as I mentioned in previous videos, due to a medication that I'm on, and nothing to do with what I do with my nails, but they are on the weaker side due to a medication that I've been on and off. So sometimes I find buffing helps give me a nice smoother surface. I'm not buffing the ridges away as such, but it just helps give a bit more of a smoother surface. Anyway, we've then jumped on to our base coat. So I'm going to be taking RB14, which is a really nice natural translucent shade in the rubber base range. And after alcohol dehydrating primer, that's when you're going to come in with your base coat. So your primer air dries. So once that has air dried, we're then going to take our rubber base coat, and I'm really going to work this into that natural nail plate. So I kind of start off by like scrubbing it into the natural nail plate, really working it in, and then I'll just float my brush over to smooth it all out. And again, the rubber base coat, if you've got a client who's got ridges in their nails or quite weak brittle nails, the rubber base coat is brilliant because it smooths everything out, gives you that super strong, super smooth base for your gel polish to come on top of, and then of course that's going to make your gel polish application look a lot neater. Now what I do like to do with any of my gel application actually is come in with my stripe liner brush, because this helps me get right up close to that cuticle line. Now of course, if you've removed all that excess cuticle, push the cuticles back nicely, you're able to tuck in your gel application and get super close. So I find this a lot easier to do with my stripe liner brush rather than with the bottle brush. So I come in, did that, cured that, and then we're ready to come in and apply our color. So I decided to go for Willow from the new spring PastelS collection. I absolutely love this color. It's one of my favorites from the collection, and I really do love a green. So I decided we'd go with this one. Now with my first coat of color, I like to apply it nice and thin, not like with the base coat where you're working it into the nail. I just paint it on nice and thin. As you can see, it looks a little bit patchy, looks a little bit uneven, but don't stress that, because when you come in and apply your second coat of color, that's when you get the full opacity. Now again, with this especially, is when I come in with my strap liner brush, because I want to get right up nice and close to that cuticle and create a nice neat cuticle line. So I paint it on and get as close as I can with my bottle brush, but then I swap to my strap liner brush, and then you can just take a small amount of product on your brush. You really don't need a lot, and then you are able to get a lot closer because you're working with a smaller amount of product, you're working with a lot smaller brush, so it gives you a lot more control over the product. So then we can get nice and close without having to worry that we're going to flood that cuticle area or touch the skin. Now, of course, if you do still touch the skin, you want to just wipe the gel off with a little bit of alcohol before curing. And then on to the second coat, I apply this ever so slightly thicker than the first coat. So again, shimmying the brush up to that cuticle area and then coming straight down the nail and then coming around one side. I like to just even out the gel polish, and then we're going to come up and around this other side. And all the time that I'm doing this, I'm trying to get as close to that cuticle and sidewall area as I can, but I'm not stressing about getting super close because I don't want to start hitting the skin, getting loads of product on the skin and having to wipe this off. So then I swap back to my striped liner brush, load it up with a little bit of gel polish. A little bit goes a long way because you've got to remember you're only getting slightly closer to the cuticle or just neatening up that cuticle line. So you don't need lots of gel polish on your brush, and less is more, because if you need more, or if you feel as though you've not got enough or you're not able to get as close to the cuticle, you can just go back in and add a little bit more to your brush. And then we're simply gonna get a little bit closer, get it nice and neat, and then pop that in to cure for 30 seconds. And the closer you get to the cuticle line, then the longer lasting your manicure looks, because as the nails start growing out, if you already leave a big gap between your gel polish application and the cuticle line, then with 1 week's growth, it's going to look like your client already needs a new manicure. Where if you get nice and close to that cuticle, then as the nails grow out, it kind of gives that a longer lasting look. The manicure is going to stay looking fresher for longer. Now, of course, I wanted to add a little bit of nail art to this design, and I wanted to kind of tie in a bit of a gold theme so that it matched the new tools. So sticking with my striped liner brush, because I had it to hand, I'm taking the platinum gold flakes and just tapping some of these on up in the cuticle area and down near the tip of the nail. And I'm just literally pressing these on to that cured tacky layer that's left behind from the gel polish. And then we're going to come in and add on a little whimsical leafy design with some stamping polish. So I've applied my stamping polish, scraped off the excess, picked up that image on my stamper, and then we're just going to remove any excess image so that we can stamp this down. You want to remove that excess image, because if we stamped down all of that excess image onto the nail, we'd have to remove that with alcohol, and then we would start removing those flakes and things like that and breaking down the gel polish. So it's always easier, in my opinion, to remove any excess image from the stamper head before you place it on the nail. I did get a little bit of stamping polish on the skin, so I'm going to take the round nail art brush and a little bit of alcohol and just clean off any of that stamping polish that's around the skin area. You can do this after top coating, but I always like to just come in and do it straight away. And with the round nail art brush, you're able to do it carefully without worrying about hitting the design that you've created on the nail. Now, of course, we do need to seal in our color and our nail art. So I'm going to do this with the new crystal top coat. And this top coat, since launching, has been super popular. So if you haven't already got it, you might want to get it. But it is a beautiful top coat. It's not as thick as the rubber top coat, sorry. However, I would say it's ever so slightly thicker than the classic no wipe top coat. But the best thing about this top coat is the clarity. It's called the Kiki London Crystal Top Coat for a reason. It gives off a beautiful crystal, kind of like a glass-like finish. It's super, super clear. So I floated that on over the design so that it caps and seals in all of that nail art. And then I'm just coming in with my striped liner brush and going around that cuticle line. So again, it's nice and close to the cuticle, and then just going along the free edge as well to cap that free edge. And then in this top coat does require a 60-second cure, so we've cured that for 60 seconds. And then this is the finished result. I really loved how the gold popped against the willow, and then the stamping looks nice and subtle, so I think it works quite pretty for spring. Of course, we need to finish off with some cuticle oil, so I've got the Kiki London Coconut Escape Cuticle Oil here. I'm just going to apply a drop of this this to my nail, and then we're really going to rub and work this in to that cuticle area and all on that skin around the nails, just to bring back, or just to basically give it a good nourish and make sure that the skin is left feeling nice and soft. And of course you want to be applying your cuticle ideally twice daily to keep those cuticles nice and soft, so that when it comes to prepping on your next manicure, it's a lot easier. Then this is the finished look once we'd finished applying that cuticle oil. I thought it looked really cute for spring, so I hope you guys like it too. If you did enjoy today's video, please do give it a thumbs up, leave us a comment below and hit that subscription button if you haven't already. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Take care. Bye bye.